What's up, everyone? This is Sam and Maddie from the HBHOES.
Welcome, everybody.
Yeah.
If you are a slut for HBO shows, then you found the right place to discuss all your theories and everything that you want.
Yep. So today we are starting off talking about House of the Dragon, of course. Maddie and I have been huge Game of Thrones fans from the very beginning. So this was very, very nice for us to see. I'm glad we're back into this world.
Yeah, no-brainer for sure.
Yeah. There's a lot that's similar. There's a lot that I picked up on that I think is going to be different about this series. Specifically, one of the best things, though, was the opening where Ramin Djawadi, who was the one who did the original score for Game of Thrones, is also in this. He's doing all of the music for this one too, and they brought back some of the Game of Thrones themes throughout this episode. So I was really excited because I am a soundtrack whore.
Yeah, I saw the music. I definitely peeped the music. I thought there was, and I think we both knew this. They were going to do a lot of odes to the original series, which is nice for all of us. I think we all like that kind of poetic referencing. We've talked about that a lot. So yeah, I think the music was really good. It was fun. It was like the same but different, and I'm sure it's going to be good going forward.
Yeah, definitely. The opening scene, it was something that it was what an original Daenerys theme was from Game of Thrones, and then they changed it a little bit, and it's when Rhaenyra was she first comes in on her dragon. That was like the one thing that was different, and this I think annoyed both Maddie and I, is the opening credits being a narration and fucking Star Wars wording, and I couldn't stand it because it was something that the original writers of Game of Thrones said that they would never do, is like any kind of like context narration and flashbacks and all that. And I really loved that about them, that they use dialogue and actual action in the shows to tell the story. They didn't rely on narration. So the whole series opening with someone narrating where we were at, I understand that it might have been necessary, and it was nice to immediately know where we were in this world, but it's still, I fucking hated it.
I did not like it. I felt like the text was tacky.
It was.
That might be an unpopular opinion, and I kind of agree with you. Like, being placed in the chronology, I'm like, oh, okay, cool, we get it. 172 years before the Mad King had Daenerys. I think we would have picked up on that later, or if not like, right away. We know it's a prequel.
Yeah. So like we've never really needed that. And I get that like Game of Thrones was a whole new world, and now a lot of us are coming back to this world in a different time. So like I said, it might have been necessary, but I think context clues throughout would have led us there anyways. That's the Game of Thrones style. So that was one thing that I was like, it's completely different writing in this show, like, and we're gonna see some big differences between this series and then the like OG Game of Thrones,
which is fine. I mean, like, I guess like let somebody else have like the steering wheel.
Absolutely, especially after the last fucking season of Game of Thrones.
I don't want to talk about it.
Those two men came back as much, and I really do love and appreciate, like, hats off to everything that they were able to do, because I mean Game of Thrones was incredible through and through, but I'm really excited to see where someone else picks off with the baton. So
okay, so speaking of kicking off, like, I want to just say, like, it was so nice also in the opening, just introducing, and I expected them to do this. If they didn't, I would have been mad. The dragon, like, swooping in, flying around. I was like, great, love to see it, want to see more. Like, I thought that was so nice.
I know. I'm like, I actually am curious what the budget is for this show, or was for this season, versus, because I just remember watching all of the inside the episodes of Game of Thrones and how they were like, oh, it costs so much money, make all the dragons in CGI. And I'm like, this show is nothing but fucking CGI. It's gonna be nothing but dragons. So I'm curious, like, did they like did HBO like seriously up the ante for this one? But that was really nice. It was nostalgic, really.
Yes.
Was my first feeling, was nostalgic. And then even throughout, hearing the different family names like Tarly and Hightower and all of these things that we knew, I was like, oh, we're back.
Yeah, it is nice. It is nice. Speaking of names, so you know, Rhaenyras, that's the daughter or the aunt?
Rhaenys is the aunt, and Rhaenyras
Okay.
is the daughter.
Rhaenyra's the daughter. She gets off of the dragon, and you know, I think they did a good job casting. It's very reminiscent of Daenerys.
Yes.
And you know, we love a good nickname, and these are hard names to identify the people. So for me, Baby D.
Baby D.
I mean, it works. It's a little bit easier, but yeah, if I ever call her that, that's what I mean.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
So, yeah, I don't know. I love her attitude. It was giving strong.
Yes.
And I love to see that, you know, in a woman. And I have to say, like, it is nice. And I think we knew it before. Not that early on in Game of Thrones, but like, it's going to be a women-dominated series.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, she's the lead, and it's apparent. I'm just very excited. You know, we're women.
Yeah, it is nice. It is nice because we, especially, what I'm kind of worried about is that by the end of the episode, she is basically the one that comes into power over Daemon, who is the uncle and the prince before this.
Mm-hmm.
Daenerys, her story arc in the original was struggle until finally she got power, right? So with Rhaenyra getting power so quickly, I'm like, oh fuck, okay, this is destined to be a rocky ass road for you, girly. You know what I mean? Like she's
Daemon is
going through it.
Yeah, Damon's a little wild. Like, you know who he reminds me of though? I love him, but he reminds me of fucking Loki in a weird,
yes, he does.
subtle sense.
He does. He also talks like someone, and I couldn't put my finger on it. It was bothering the fuck out of me. But somebody in original GOT, he just speaks like them, and I'm like, if I close my eyes, maybe I can picture who he reminds me of so much. But Loki for sure. Fucking god of chaos, like
yes.
100%.
He's a trickster. Like I don't know, like he knows definitely how to play the fence.
Yes.
He can be manipulative and like
and charming, and he's all of it. He's all of it.
Yeah. He's gonna be wild.
Yeah, he gives me chaotic good, because I ultimately do think that he is incredibly loyal. He is looking out for his brother, who is the king, whose hand is a cunt. So I'm just gonna throw that out. He is gonna be the little finger, but with a bad personality. You know what I mean? Like just the less charming little finger. At least
Littlefinger had a entertaining personality.
Exactly. No, he's gonna be like the little toe. That's what I'm gonna call him. Because
period.
But yeah, no, but and then Daemon sees it. He's like, yeah, I see right through this man. And so I think that Daemon has ultimately really good intentions. I think he's very loyal to his family, but I think he's probably just going to be pushed to like the absolute limit in this show.
Yeah. And I just want to say too, like something that I don't know, like the women in the Targaryen family, and this is just like maybe a hunch, and we can get there a little bit later, but just like the women in the Targaryen family are powerful, and that's something to note. Like it comes very naturally and easy for them, and I think that's really interesting compared to the men in the family. Like I think that like we're seeing a trend of like more of a power struggle with the men in the Targaryen family. I don't know if that's true for all of the lineage. Like these are just guesses. I didn't read the books.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're going off of what we already know about the Targaryens, and and they've had like obviously a pretty successful past, but not without issues. And then I think it being, you know, our first intro into this generation, or these couple generations that are living together, ruling together, with her coming immediately, like the struggle of having a male heir through all the years. You know, they talked about how that was just a detriment on the entire family. But then with her coming into power, I think, yeah, it's definitely going to be something that's like, it's going to be the classic male struggle, you know. But you're right. And I think that we've seen it with Daenerys, and now with Rhaenyras, and with her, even her mother and the aunt that was
Rhaenys also, like, she was a very she was like a high contender. Only, you know, they said it, like, they only considered 2 really out of the 14 that they were considering to be the heir, which means she, you know, like, yes, I know it's blood, but it's also like she could have done it.
Yeah.
And they were
absolutely
considering it.
So, I mean, and the thing is, like, politically, you know, you have to put yourself in that time, and they had never had a queen on the throne that was elected to be there. And so it's like, it's not necessarily even about who the family thinks is the best, it's who they can prove that, you know, to the public is the best and most suited. So that's where there would be a huge struggle when it comes to like actual Westeros and the public. But with them, you know, yeah, I think that we're definitely going to see that. And I'm hoping that through all of it, we know that there's going to be conflict with Daemon. There's going to be conflict with the whole family and with others for sure. I hope that, you know, we did see a lot of like this really nice camaraderie between Rhaenyras and Daemon in the beginning of the episode. And I hope that, you know, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, we can beat each other up, but we'll still like smile at each other after. Cause you know what I mean? Like we can still fight a little bit
with him well. For being younger, I felt like when they were speaking in like their native tongue, it was, I don't know, she wasn't scared, and she was just like, yeah, like, don't worry about it. Like, I can handle him.
Yeah.
You know, and like he didn't seem threatening. I did get a little bit like, I mean, I don't know if this is just like PTSD from Game of Thrones. I was like, please, no incest right away.
Oh my God, I really like, that's what
necklace.
It looked like. That's what it looked like. That I was like, they're gonna fuck right here. They're about to fuck.
Yeah, and like, you know, it's like the power thing, whatever. He's older, she's smaller, younger, but also like I think she's underage, so I don't know if like they could do that. I don't know in real life, but I mean in the show, I'm like, I don't know if they ever showed that in Game of Thrones. Like,
what do you mean, like underage?
Yeah, which is, thank God. But
well, you mean like underage,
like any pedophilia or anything? Like they didn't show that,
the
right?
thing is like we never really knew anybody's age, but like if I think about like Sansa and Ramses, they were definitely under like 18, but age wasn't even like a consideration back then. You know what I mean? It's a sign of the times. So like really, and then a lot of the times like men would end up taking wives that were like half their age, or
that's
so
true.
I don't think that, like, I didn't think that was gonna be a factor at all. But the way that, I don't know what it is. I know that they made it like that for a reason. Those 2 actors have a lot of chemistry, and that scene felt sexual. It didn't feel like it felt like, I'm gonna challenge you a little bit, you know, but in a very kind of flirty way. And even the way she was looking at him when he was jousting, it was like, you could tell that he has like a special place in her heart. And whether that's like a crush in a crush way, or if it's in like a, I really admire this man way, we don't know yet, but I can see it happening. I can see them both fighting for the throne and then fucking a lot.
Oh my God.
Or maybe that's just like my own fantasy. I'm like, if I was her, it's incest and it's disgusting, right? But it's a sign of the times. They were all doing it. Because I was thinking,
it's the royal bloodline. Like exactly. They keep
and
it in.
Her mom is also white of hair. So I'm like,
right,
she was
Silverhead.
probably also a Targaryen that,
Yeah, and I'm wondering, actually, that's such a good point. Like later on, she says in the tub, she doesn't want to continue having babies because it's been a struggle. Like she's had some hard times. And I'm wondering if that's because of like the incestual like patterns as well.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be.
Mm-hmm.
That's for science, but regardless,
Yeah.
yes, like they do keep it in like the royalties and the silver hair, all of that. By the way, let's just take a quick rewind. I think we should just do a little formal introduction of the immediate family that we do know already. The king,
yes,
I already forgot his name, but we've got him. We've got the queen Emma, who's having the baby. We've got the daughter Rhaenyras, and we've got the uncle Daemon. Those are like the main Targaryens at the moment.
Viserys. He's Viserys the first.
That's the king?
Viserys, yes, there have been others after him.
There you go.
Yeah.
So in case anyone
that's
was like, what the hell?
Yeah, and then the aunt is Rhaenys.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, so we started a list of the cast members. It's episode 1. Cut us some fucking slack.
yeah, we'll get better.
It's all Targaryen names, so it's like it's easy when it's like fucking Eddard and then Aegon, because they're totally different origin sounding. So it was easier to catch on in Game of Thrones because they all had different things, and these are all like they all end in like with a YS. So or an ON.
Yes. But I just want to also say this, something that I had picked up on a little bit throughout the episode, and actually more than a little bit, it was like a lot of fucking bit. So introducing Alicent, which I think is Rhaenyras' like bestie.
Yeah, that's
like her main fucking bitch, A1 from day one, bitch.
That's
who is well, yeah, that sucked. But who is the daughter of the right hand of the king?
Yeah, the hand of the king. Yep.
Okay, so the right hand of the king.
Right hand man.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Makes sense.
So I am just picking up on the let's be honest vibes. It was, I mean, they're besties, but like there were some moments like when they were in the park and she didn't want to study and she was just kind of like answering assholey, and she says to her, she's like, you're always like this when you're worried. And she says like, what? And she's like, disagreeable.
Yes. Loved it.
To me, it just felt like almost romantic in the realness. I was like, oh, this bitch is like flaming you.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of caught that too. I was like, okay, they are very, very, it kind of reminded me of Daenerys and Melisandre. No, that's not it. That's not it. Nope.
I think that is it.
No. It was nope. Fuck. Well, we all know who I'm talking about.
The really cute girl that was in love with Grey Worm.
Yes. Yeah. Massandei, that's her name. Nope. Don't think that's it either. Whatever. It's fine. We know I'm not gonna waste any more time.
We'll put it down. We'll put it down in the description.
Yeah, we gotta do a refresher. It's been a while. But yeah, so I'm trying to remember. Okay, anyways, I'm gonna let it go. It reminded me of that, just that like really, really good like kinship with one another, which I'm happy about. I know that that's gonna be tested 100% just by the end of the episode. What's her name? Aleficent? What is her name?
Alicent. So it's like Alice,
but with an ENT. Yep. Okay, so her dad, Hand of the King, sends her to comfort him in a pretty dress in his, chamber.
In her mother's dress, yes.
So clearly trying to get, her to seduce him because this man wants power. And Daemon even said it himself, like he's the second son of, of a family. He has no claim to anything. All he can be in this world is something that he makes himself, which is very Littlefinger. I'm gonna call him Big Toe, actually. He's gonna be Big Toe. Um, but yeah, so I think that friendship between the two of them is it's going to be tested, especially if Viserys, the king, kind of falls for it and they end up having a relationship. Like,
oh, he's definitely going to, because she was smart. She did not want to have sex with him, so she brought a book. And she was like, listen, I brought a book. I thought you might want to be comfortable. And she also said the most right thing, because she's young and like true of heart.
Yeah, and she just lost her mom.
And she's like, all I wanted was someone to say that they were sorry. And I'm so sorry for you, Your Grace. And like, honestly, it was like so concise and quick, but I felt like it was very powerful. And I think that he noticed it right away. It was like he grasped it and just kind of like looked down and like continued. She probably read the book. And like, they're going to have more time like that, which is going to make him.
Well, they're also very close. Like, so basically in those situations, from what I'm remembering of the court in King's Landing, they're all very close. And they might even all like, so I don't know exactly if they're in the same like castle that like Cersei was in the whole time. But I know that, her court, or like Joffrey's court when he was there, they were all very close. I don't know if they all live in the same castle, like the Grand Maester, the Hand of the King, the Master of Coin, etc. They're all very close. So nonetheless, her being the daughter of the Hand of the King, who is the closest ally, it's basically the consultant to the king. She's going to be around all the time. She always is already. So if they start to develop, some sort of relationship, it's going to blossom because they have so much time, they spend so much time together. But I think that that's definitely going to come in between, because then what happens if Viserys wants to try having a child with her and try having a male heir with her, then it's kind of ripping the throne away from Rhaenyras, right? So that's like giving her that sense of like power, especially because she knows like, I'm not a son, my dad always wanted a son, I'll never be looked at like that, but that's fine. She was okay with it, him giving it to her feeling very proud, and then having it being ripped away if he tries to have an heir with a younger girl, that it's going to cause a whole lot of drama. I also do want to say that, this is kind of like not foreshadowing, but like when I think of Game of Thrones and Daenerys, there was never a mention of there being a queen Targaryen on the throne ever before in history. I think that would be something that Daenerys would like really hold on to and like try to strive to be, but she wanted to be the first. So I think that's a foreshadow that it's not really going to work out for Rhaenyra, like in throne wise.
Oh, that's a great point. That's a great point. But spoiler alert, you already know if you're listening to this, fucking spoilers.
Fucking get out of here if you haven't seen Game of Thrones. What the fuck are you doing here?
Deadass. But we do know that she does get the throne. I mean, like they're going through the coronation process.
Well, yeah, but that's only when he dies. So
only when he dies,
or when he like falls ill, and like in the case, it's basically a will and testament,
right?
Like saying, this is the person that I'm testifying should sit on the throne in case something should happen.
That puts a clock on Daemon and Rhaenyras' relationship. That's so sad.
100% it does. And then not only that, but then Viserys just banished Daemon and was like, well, you have a wife over in some fucking swampy
Runestone, I think.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is. I'm assuming it's not great because I know the Game of Thrones map like fucking the back of my hand. So I'm like, never heard of that. It's probably Swamp Wasteland, like the Everglades.
Oh my God, wait, you know that game that you play? I just want to boost it real quick. What's the name of it?
GeoGuessr.
GeoMaster?
GeoGuessr.
GeoGuessr. They should make the Game of Thrones map. You're welcome.
If you do that, we have this recorded. We will sue you if you do this without us. Thank you. Just like, because that's a fucking.
But please do it. But please do it because we will play.
Yeah, I'd fucking kill it. But yeah, so I've never heard of this place. it's the Everglades of Westeros. No one wants to fucking be there. And so I'm like, and then he doesn't really talk highly of his wife. I'm assuming that he's really not in love with her. I want to know I'm really curious about who she is.
He said that sheeps are prettier than the bitches in Runestone. And I was like, no, dude, honestly, I would divorce him so fast.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't give a shit if you're royal.
Yeah. He
I mean, I guess you can't do that back in the day. Like they were probably, marrying for land and power and names and whatever. But regardless, he's a fucking womanizer, of course, fucking these hoes, Also, let's just talk about Daemon. I think some big moments, like he was fucking, again, Loki, unpredictable, chaotic. He led his little Night Watch army into the city and punished sinners.
Which was actually really fun that was the beginning of the City Watch, because the City Watch played a big role in King's Landing and Game of Thrones. So it's.
I mean, are they cops?
Basically, yeah, they're basically like fucking neighborhood watch, but like brutal.
Yeah, not here.
But they're the ones that like
900 BC ain't never met a good cop.
Yeah. God damn. Yeah, but so yeah, he obviously excellent leader. Very charismatic. I personally love him. In a way of a character, like he has so much good and so much bad potential that it just makes him so interesting. Like I'm very excited about him.
Another bad thing that he did in this episode. Oh, by the way, he also got out of that because he was able to be manipulative, and also he's, the brother of the king, so he's got a lot of pardon. But then they do the tournament and he does the jousting and he chooses
he would have died on sight if he wasn't who he was.
Yeah, he chooses the hand of the king's son to joust,
which was hilarious. I was like, this is, of course you did. And even Viserys laughed because it's like, he's gonna push your buttons. But like, I love that. Give me that like Sagittarius energy,
Oh my fucking god. Like, yeah. Oh my god, a Sag man.
It's such a Sag. So you guys wouldn't know this as listeners, but Maddie and I during Game of Thrones made an entire chart basically of every single character that had a first and last name and what their zodiacs would probably be. And I'm very
we broke it down by family tree.
Yeah, it was an excellent thing. So but nonetheless, big Sag energy from this man. He's fucking radiating with just like crazy but then we do see that vulnerable side where he's with, is it a prostitute? I don't know, like his little girly friend in the city.
Yeah, she kind of reminds me of who was
the one with
my gosh, no, who was the little guy in the
Tyrion?
Yeah, who was his girl?
Shay. Yeah,
she reminds me of Shay.
Well, yeah, that's why it's like it didn't seem like it was just a prostitute, like a one-time prostitute. It seemed like she was his regular. But yeah, no, so he couldn't finish, and then she goes and hugs him, and whatever. And I was like, okay, well, he's got some shit, like he's.
Yeah, I mean, if you're royal, I guess you do.
Yeah, you can't always get a nut off, right? Like sometimes you just gotta cry. It's all right. It's all right.
Different kind of orgasm, people. Fuck. Yeah. So what else did he do? I know he did something else. In the episode. We'll come back to him.
Yeah. I do want to say that I really like all the characters so far. I really like Rhaenyras a lot. There's something about her that I just think is like just really cool and level-headed and smart. And so I think that she's going to be a good person to follow. She's the clear protagonist in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think that she's going to go through a lot of trials and tribulations through this because she's a woman and because she's young and all of that. But yeah, all the characters, I really love them. The one things that I wanted to talk about were first of all, the costumes. Incredible. My favorite look in so long was her coronation look, where she looked fucking stunning, like jaw, like I couldn't even believe it. I was like, wow, she looked stunning. And then Daemon's jousting look, like even the horse's helmet was like a dragon head, and I was like, yeah, this is just bad fucking ass. Like,
thank you for bringing up the jousting, because there was one other point that I wanted to make
about Daemon.
Yes, I forgot that he also chose the Dornish guy to joust, and of course they foreshadowed it that he was gonna be a baddie, and I was like, okay, cool, you're gonna fucks with him, like you're not gonna die, it's cool. Then he asks for her little blessing, and I was like, oh wait, this is giving, like, it was giving, let's be honest, and I was like, oh, it's just giving LGBT, like this bitch is just sexual, she's fluid as fuck. I don't know, like we had some gay relationships in Game of Thrones. Who was the like cute prince?
It was
Marjorie's brother.
Yes, his name was Loras, and he was with the Baratheon. Renly and Loras were the gay couple. Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if there were any other.
The Yara Greyjoy was gay.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, but it was like, I don't know, I feel like it was so cool that they opened. To me, it felt like very fluid. I was like, oh, Rhaenyras is like, she's just like, yo, bitch, like I'll do what the fuck I want. Like I'm royalty. I like who I like.
Yeah, and she wasn't really in line to like take over a throne or anything. So it wasn't like, she had to be like, very specific. Like there wasn't like a set path, because when you're in that position of like ultimate power, you have to do it for looks more than anything. But yeah, no. And then if we think about like the actual, like if this was real, and they do a really good job of like the details being what was probably realistic for, a specific time period. They were all fluid as fuck, all of them. Like,
yes,
every single one of them. They just liked to have sex. Like it didn't matter with who or what, or, whatever. Like it was just like anything goes.
It's very, very human. It's very like reminiscent, I think, even of older times. Like we know that like the Greeks and Romans, especially like the men, they had younger men, like, as, I don't know, for lack of a better term, like not concubine, but it's just, they have relations.
Yes.
So, and I think that like, again, it's all very human. I feel like aliens came down, we'd be like, yeah, what up? We fuck. So like exactly. It's very well done.
Yeah. So there is a lot of like, I think like judgment, there's definitely like in Game of Thrones, we saw quite a bit of like toxic masculinity, especially from specific regions, like the Ironborns, for example, were
the Dornish didn't give a fuck.
No, they didn't at all. And that was really, that was another thing is, what's his name? He, fluid as fuck, was so hot.
Oberyn.
Yes, Oberyn. Yep. He, God, so hot. Just the fluidity in that. So, and I think that, with them, they're from Valyria. I don't know how exactly that was, but I mean, we do know that the Dornish are like notoriously free people. So, I don't know. I'm excited to see this Dornish guy. We only saw him for like a split second, and I was like, woof, okay. He was fine. He was good looking.
One thing about Game of Thrones, they gonna come out in the first episode with some horrible death and with some sex.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I just want to say
one was underwhelming, the Daemon sex. Like it just, I understand it was supposed to be. It was like, oh, I'm just trying to get off, but like I was like,
well, I think it's because it was the first episode. I honestly feel like the horrific death was like the bigger point, because I just literally going back to the first episode of the first season of Game of Thrones, one of the most crazy things, and this wasn't death, but we didn't know until the second episode, but fucking
Bran,
Jaime pushes Bran out the window, and it was shocking. And like, I don't know, I feel like
wouldn't that have been crazy if it was Rhaenyras and Daemon that did have sex, and it was just like, oh, this is another incestual thing, like Jaime and Cersei, and you know, it's like Game of Thrones season 1, episode 1. And the
Lannisters did have blonde hair, so like, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a little reminiscent.
Yeah, no, but there's definitely like a lot of parallels that I've been seeing too, just with the way that things are kind of unfolding. I think that this one was a little bit, well, no, I was gonna say like grounded and mellow, but that's not true now that I'm thinking about everything that did happen in this episode. It's pretty much right on track with it's gonna be fucking nuts and it's gonna be bloodshed. And
speaking of things that are reminiscent, I do have to say one thing that displeased me a lot. I do think I understand the reason for it though. Like there were some scenes that were very dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember that from like the last few episodes of the last season of Game of Thrones. And like, we were all like, bro, like the scenes were too dark. Like they weren't lit well. And I get it. They were like in the cold of night in war and these different things. And I think even in these scenes where I did see that happen, it's because they were sieging the city. So like, they're not going to show people being like dismembered and disfigured like that all the time. I mean, yeah, they showed some stuff, but like, this is the first episode. So like, I do think they've darkened some of those like more graphic scenes. And I was like, wait, I feel like I can't see what's going on. So that,
just like
that kind of irked me a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of got that too, for specifically with the City Watch raid. You know, we got the gist of what was happening, but I think what they did was they cut off a dick at one point, and it did not look like a dick after it was cut off.
It was weird.
It looked like a tongue.
Yeah, because it was super bloody and the scene was dark.
It was very dark. And like, honestly, I'm like, please don't make the same mistake of having an incredibly dark, like, especially fighting scenes. Like, we want to see what's happening. We hear it. We're anxious already. Like, we're ready. You know, we want to see what's going on. Adding like that kind of dark overlay to it, or not having enough light in general is, you know, it just makes it all the more like unreassuring. Like, I remember feeling like that, especially during the, you know, the Cold War with the Night King War, and everyone had the same thoughts. We were so prepared to see this, and we didn't see anything that was going on. So it was like we were just looking at darkness and hearing the sounds. And maybe they did it on purpose because it drove me crazy and it got me so anxious.
It does leave room for the imagination, right? Like, so maybe they don't want to depict it fully so that you can kind of imagine, which is reminiscent of like a book, you know, because like I know that some people have a harder time visualizing, but like that's what books are. Like, you visualize characters and things. So like, I don't know, maybe in that sense, they're like leaving a little bit of like ambiguousness for the viewer to just kind of have fun with it in their own way. I would prefer to see it because I think that like the story is very, very guided already. It's very detailed. So like, to miss out on some of this, and like they have a great opportunity to show a lot of action. I know Game of Thrones is more about the story, but like, why not? I don't know, maybe it's a budget thing. But like, I would explore that avenue if I could.
Yeah, it definitely could be, because they're showing like a fuck ton of dragons. So I'm like, that's where all the CG is actually going, probably. It's like those moments. So like, I know, and one thing that like I want to keep watch of too is that I know that just from the interviews that I've seen with George R.R. Martin, the dragons are characters in themselves, and each person has basically a designated dragon, so those are important. So, you know, knowing them and what they look like, because there's some that are like way smaller than others. At the end of the episode, we saw a fucking huge one, but then we like, I think the two that we've seen like during the episode are kind of smaller, but nonetheless, that's just, something to, in like the weeks ahead, to,
Yeah, I don't think we got a lot of information about them in this one. It was like a quick intro, which is great. Love to see it. And I'm glad that we saw like multiple. I think like this is House of Dragons. We need to see the dragons.
Yes.
But we'll get more of their personality in future episodes. And by the way, I just wanted to, mention this quickly, big moment in the episode, notable moment, very, very triggering, very moving. Emma's pregnancy. We didn't talk about it. She goes breach while they're having the tournament. They call the king back, and basically they tell the king that he has to make a decision, either save one of them or save both of them. And I already knew what that meant. And we kind of discussed that it had been foreshadowed a bit. When she's in the tub, she tells the king, how she feels about having more kids. But that, we talked on the phone before this and I was like almost trembling. So we won't keep it too long. We'll keep it brief, but they do perform a cesarean on her, I
don't even know if it would be considered a cesarean.
Their version of it in a medieval, basically times. But they cut into her belly. But the thing that first of all, it was graphic and it was disturbing. But the thing that hurt me the most, I think, was, the king didn't speak to her and they were very close. Like it wasn't just like, oh, this is my fucking queen and bear me a son. Like he loved her.
Yeah, he did.
So it really, really pissed me off that they didn't do her the service. Like even as a friend, I'm like, yeah, I get it. You're a man. This is a patriarchy. You're the king, but like you should have said something before you did that. Whether or not she was still going to fight you, like you should have been like, I'm sorry, honey. Like I want to save this baby.
Yeah, but I think like on the other hand, not that you're wrong. I think that the whole thing was tragic. I don't know if I was him, if I would have gone about it any differently, because would you rather know that you're about to die before you're about to die, or would you rather, you know what I mean? Like, I think that maybe he was hoping that and the shittiest part was that she realized what was happening before it happened. And that was horrible. If she wouldn't have rolled over, if she wouldn't have seen what they were doing, then she wouldn't have even known it was coming. So I think that was the shitty part, is that she did know that it was coming, when it did. So I think that, maybe he was trying to avoid that heartache before she died. We knew that she was going to die. So, die ignorantly and blissful. If you can't, clearly, there was nothing. I like the whole thing was really, really shitty. I feel horrible for him for being the one that has to make that decision too. I have no idea what I would do in that situation.
Yeah, and I think, the tragedy continues. Like, I guess it's the Targaryen way. Like, they are tragic, but like, and I think another thing that sucks for us, like as modern people, and that understands like the dangers of these things, like I don't know how long it took for him to make that decision, or how long it took for them to notify the king, like that the baby was breech. If they didn't handle it right away, like we all knew that the baby was going to die too. No matter what they did.
Yeah.
Because it was probably already in there like for too long before they could do anything about it. So it was tragic. And I think the most fucked up thing for me besides that, because I cried hard for that scene, but like after that, hearing what Damon said about it was air for a day, bruh, I would have had his head. You're done.
Yeah
it was really bad.
It was stupid. It was really dumb. But I think that I don't, whatever. That was fucking dumb. I'm not even gonna try to like justify or like understand where he was coming from. I think he was just, talking big shit at the bar with his buddies, and
of course.
And that's ultimately like his mouth got him in trouble, and that's why he was banished, and the throne was ultimately taken away from him. So he he just
Yeah.
has to deal with the consequences now. So
Yeah.
one thing that I wanted to talk about was was my notable moment and gave me the most joy was when it was right before Viserys tells Rhaenyra that he wants to coronate her basically and give her the throne. He's telling her they're standing in front of the dragon skull, and that they're in like the crypts of the castle because that's where all the dragon skulls are 172 or 76 years later, however long. But he's sitting there and he's like, look at the dragon, what do you think it means? And then he's talking about Aegon, I believe, back in Valyria had a vision of a song of ice and fire, and just was talking about basically the the Night King and all of that, which was really cute to mention that because I'm like, they're talking about it. Like I got really excited. But then the whole time he's doing it, he's holding the dagger that was in every season of Game of Thrones at some point, traveled all the way. It was used to try to kill Bran in the very beginning. It was the reason why the Starks and the Lannisters even started fighting, because they thought it was Tyrion's blade, etc. It literally changed the course of history in Game of Thrones 170 odd years later. And then it was the what Littlefinger gave back to Bran at the end, what Bran ultimately gave to Arya, and Arya still has with her wherever she decided to sail off to. So I thought that was really cool because I was like, okay, we're seeing the very beginning of this blade that literally changes history. And it'll probably change history again throughout this series.
Yeah, no, it's definitely foreshadowing that. I'm not gonna doubt it at all.
Yeah, it was so nice. And I'm like, okay, there's Easter eggs all everywhere. And I love it because I'm like, the details are there. George R.R. Martin is such a fantastic storyteller that of course they are going to be there. So those little things I really loved, like as they're coming out, because diehard Game of Thrones gal over here. So it's
I love that the blade is just like bewitched.
But basically, it's got its own life path. Like
it's a character.
Exactly, it is. I'm pretty sure it has a name. Normally, all of the weapons, especially the really high valued weapons, have names. Like all the swords have their own
For
name.
right now, we'll call it Baby Excalibur because
basically
that's the only one that we know.
Yes. So that was really cool hearing the the Game of Thrones plot being told by the king holding the dagger in the dungeons with the dragon skulls, etc. Like it was all just very rounded. So that was my big moment from this episode, and I'm excited to see what other things they're going to be dropping in and out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I also wanted to just talk about like an overarching theory. I mentioned it a little bit in the beginning, just about like the Targaryen women. Another thing that I wanted to say is I think that the reason they always have struggles with men is because like the Targaryen family is destined for women. Like I just have that. I mean, I don't like, this isn't a theory, it's not a plot, but I'm just like, oh yeah, like no wonder like Emma had a hard time, like she like had a few stillborns and like lost it one or something like that. So I'm like, oh, like they're just not supposed to have men. Like, and if they do, I don't know, like the men are just, they have a much harder time in the Targaryen family than the women do. The women are really the strongholds, they're the leaders.
Yeah, we saw that with like from what we know of immediate Daenerys history, what obviously her and her brother, he was a fucking nut job, and then her dad was also a nut job, and she was the only one that escaped insanity basically outside of John's dad.
Right. And I think in the beginning of the series of this episode, they do say Jairus, who was like the first king, he ruled in peace for 60 years. So it's not all the men, but like the men, have we seen any women in the Targaryen go crazy at all? that we
No.
know of, even in Game of Thrones? No. So like there is something in the men like that they struggle with more.
Yeah, it's that
And I
fucking
think that's very
chromosome, man.
interesting.
It's the chromosome. It's got all the crazy in it.
It's true. It's true. Oh God. We're not feminazis. We're
No,
sorry.
yeah, no, we're not. And honestly, I really like Viserys as a character. I really like Daemon as a
As a king
character.
too. I
Yeah,
think he's a good
Viserys is a
king.
great king, and I think he's fair. And and even yeah, so I just remembered it was Rhaegar, I believe, was Daenerys's uncle, the one that used to walk around downtown King's Landing and sing, and very good. He was John's actual dad. Um and yeah, so he was good too, and he just kind of, that was just like a star-crossed lover kind of moment. But nonetheless, there have been really good men that we've heard of, and really triumphant men in the family. Maybe it's just the men get like sick with power. Maybe that's what keeps happening, and then obviously we know that
Or
it's a long
paranoid with
lineage.
power.
Yeah, what?
Or paranoid with power. I
Yeah.
believe that's what happened to Daenerys's father, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, he was
Um,
scared.
yeah, and then at a certain point they started keeping like locking the dragons away. The dragons got smaller, and we kind of, I'm kind of like, so I think that might be where we're going with the series, is to see all of the backstory that we know just from dialogue in Game of Thrones, and we're going to see that all play out, like
well, right, it's the prequel, right? So the great thing about this series, I was a little bit annoyed about it because in the beginning, the narrator says that they were like, oh, the only thing that can take down the Targaryen family are themselves. And I was like, well, duh. Like, this is a prequel. We understand that. So everything like that we already know is going to be like more explained, and we're just going to kind of see the back side of what happened and the connections that happened and the arguments that happened, which is great. It's intimate. Actually, a series that did this well, shout out Spartacus. It's kind of old, but I remember they did the first season and then they did the prequel season.
Yeah.
And it was honestly very enjoyable. So I really like that House of Dragons. Yes, it's a different story, but we do get a lot of like
It's still, yeah,
energy.
yes, and it's still the same world, which is really cool, because it's a world that's completely made up, that we've all been in love with. So I think that's really good. It's like we're just transported right back there. So it's like we're learning the history that they already knew, which is cool. And like that, my biggest question overall for the whole thing is what I'm most excited to see is how far they actually go. Like, are we going to go up to the time of the Mad King? Are we going to get that far?
Yeah.
Are we just going to stay in one kind of decade of time? Or like, how much time is actually going to pass through this? So how much are we going to see generationally in this series? Because it would be, the Mad King has always been somebody that I think all Game of Thrones fans have wanted to see, to actually see. And because they never really did flashbacks or anything, we just got the stories and then maybe some very like cryptic clips of him and the blue fire, and but I've always been like, oh my God, I would totally watch a show that's just about this man, because it's fascinating. I mean,
oh, absolutely
fascinating. So it's cool. It's like, I'm really interested to see how far they take this and where it goes. And
yeah, I don't think that we'll get that far, to be honest.
I don't think so either.
That's just a
it's
theory.
almost 2 centuries of,
yeah, and they like they can make money off of this series by like doing other spin-offs if this is also successful, which I think it will be, because the story is good and you can really dive deeply into it.
Yeah, it hit the most amount of premiere streams in HBO history, with like 10 million last night.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Good for them, honestly. I proud to be a HBHOE.
Yes.
Steady riding, for our fucking man. Yeah, no, I'm excited for the series to unfold. I think it's going to be a fun story, even though we kind of have the backgrounds. We know like what it is, 2 centuries later, but it's still it's just a great path to explore. It's always fun to do this kind of thing. And we're very nostalgic people. Humans are nostalgic. Like we're sympathetic, sensitive, compassionate creatures. So like it's fun to go and do something this way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really, really excited. So I think we'll end this episode here. We will be uploading recaps and our thoughts about every episode on Monday nights going forward for the rest of the series. And so, keep up with us, subscribe, like, review, and you can also find us online at hb.hoes on Instagram, hb_hoes on Twitter. I can't put a period in Twitter names, so I'm not me. And hoes at hbhoes.com is our email. So reach out to us, let us know your reviews, things that you might want us to talk about in more detail, and we'll definitely shout out whoever hits us up. So
yeah, and I think like eventually, or maybe right away, you can leave us a review, like we'll read them. Just don't say anything rude, like well, to us is fine, but nothing to like the masses. No isms, right? Like let's not do that. But like, yeah, give us a 5-star, or we'll read your review, and like definitely come hang with us. If you love HBO shows, if you love Game of Thrones, if you love House of Dragons, eventually we're going to do some other series. We'd like to go back and unarchive some old series that have already been shown. But we'll keep you updated. So thanks for tuning in. Go and be a little slut for HBO. Go be your HBO self.
Yes. All right. Bye, guys.
See you later.